Imagine that there is a box, and inside that box there is... You know what? I know that some of you might have already imagined what's inside that box, but now I want you to try and stop imagining altogether. No dreaming, no visualization, and certainly no daydreaming. Most of us would find it difficult to try and stop imagining things. That is because imagination is responsible for so many things in our lives, whether it's movies or music, art or video games, from magic to engineering and everything in between. It simply is part of the human experience. Unfortunately, nowadays, very few teachers try to enrich their students' imagination. Instead, it is something the student discovers when bored in class. Personally, my earliest experience related to this was in first grade. I was bored in class like most students at the time, and I distinctly remember wishing that I was in Miss Frizzle's class learning about whatever I was being taught in class at the time in one of the school bus's magical adventures. I still wish that each and every class today could be enhanced with a magical school bus of sorts. Or, realistically speaking, that children could go on field trips as much as possible so that they can actively engage with the material that they're learning about. Of course, going on field trips day in and day out has some problems. One major problem being the financial absurdness of the suggestion. Very few people could afford going on the amount of field trips it would require to cover their subjects for 1 year, let alone for 12 years of education. However, the students we are talking about would have to be receiving basic education in the first place. Since COVID started, 90% of all students have been kept out of schools. Some of them have access to remote learning, but over 500 million students worldwide do not have access to it. And there are a couple of factors that significantly contribute to the problem. From the lack of internet in rural areas to the distance between them and the nearest school, or the financial burden of education in impoverished communities, and a myriad of other factors including but not limited to the low number of qualified teachers, the lack of necessary household assets and policies geared towards remote learners' need, the lack of psychosocial support, pre-primary children missing out on early childhood education, and the reliance on a very small amount of delivery methods. It just makes my heart hurt that so many students don't have access to the most basic fundamental education, and that some of those who do, actually the vast majority of those who do, are not reaching anywhere near their maximum potential. The Oasis Shared Learning Platform is a system that would deliver engaging education for those who do not have access to it in the first place, and improve the quality of education in and out of classrooms for those who already have access to it. The system would be based on the Google Cardboard, which is already being used in some schools to deliver affordable and accessible virtual reality experiences via smartphone and some cardboard. The only addition would be a controller similar to the LG Magic Remote or the Wii controller, to allow the user to intuitively interact with the system without having to learn a new set of controls, perfect for children, which are the primary focus of this project. The whole system is estimated to cost around $150 US, if the student would have to buy a new phone. If the phone was donated or the user already had access to a smartphone, the estimated cost drops to around $20. Let's pause here for a second. $20 is what someone earning minimum wage would make in less than 3 hours in most developed countries. Imagine how many devices could be made and distributed to how many students who would get an opportunity to experience enhanced and engaging education in developing countries. The problem would be that the user would not get the fanciest, most polished experience. It will be buggy, it will be choppy, it will be pixelated at times, but it doesn't have to be the fanciest top-of-the-line equipment. It just has to work, and it has to be accessible to the widest possible audience. Take the Chromebook, for example. It was not, and still is not, the fastest laptop. Far from it. It is comparatively slow, and it has a set of very limited functionalities as well. But it managed to improve so many lives and improve the quality of education in so many classrooms just because of how accessible and affordable it was. And still is. And it kept getting better, faster, cheaper, and more accessible over the years because of all the support it was receiving. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great and wonderful, but I don't really see how the system would improve the quality of education in and out of classrooms, as you said earlier. And to that I say, that's a great question. Now, let's take that question bit by bit and analyze how the Oasis would help. Remote learning first. Remote learning nowadays consists primarily of content that is consumed through a screen. Whether it's a tablet, computer, or laptop, the medium is almost always flat and lacks input from the student. It is not interactive and usually very boring, especially for children. We have all experienced this over and over for the past year or so. And do you all know what I'm talking about? Now let's take a look at how the Oasis would handle this. The system would primarily consist of two main software components. Firstly, gamified versions of the curricula would help keep the students engaged and spark their interest and imagination given the lack of a teacher in person, allowing them to experience the learning material asynchronously at their own pace. Think a modified version of Assassin's Creed for history, or the Kerbal Space Program, or even EVE Online for astronomy, or Subnautica for marine biology. Secondly, a shared online meeting space would be provided if the student has access to the internet, where the teachers could check in on the student's progress in an environment that is way more engaging than Zoom. In the case where the student does not have access to the internet, the entire curricula would be optimized so that it would fit on an SD card, and the teacher could meet up with the students to check in on their progress whenever possible, which would be an ideal solution for those living in rural areas. Now that we have seen how the Oasis would help education outside of classrooms, let us take a look at how the Oasis would help teachers inside of classrooms. The teacher and all students in class need to have the Oasis headset and controller with them. The teacher can then ask the students to wear the headset whenever they deem it necessary. And this is where the shared reality portion kicks in. Augmented reality would be utilized to pass the feed from the phone's camera inside the headset to the screen, which would then be augmented with the content that the teacher wants to display, allowing the students to experience the content inside of the classroom. You know what? I know this might be very difficult to visualize without experiencing it. And you can't really experience it when you're not here in person. So let me try something quick. By using shared augmented reality, the teacher can bring any 3D object inside of the classroom out of thin air. We can see this in action as the teacher shows the students a seahorse in the middle of the classroom. The way that the information is being portrayed to you right now is how traditional education works. If I want to show you something that is not in the textbooks, I have to illustrate it on a whiteboard or show you some images from the internet. Now let's try seeing this from a different perspective. Remember this box? I want you to try imagining something else for me. Based on what you just saw, I want you to imagine what's outside of the box. What a classroom filled with possibilities would look like. But let's remove that box first. Now let's add some walls, and let's see how the students would be learning about the Mars rover, for example. While the two scenes you just saw both try to convey the same idea, the difference between the two-dimensional illustration and the three-dimensional scene is the same difference between traditional learning and VR. Our brains are wired to perceive depth and are more engaged when we are dealing with three-dimensional objects. But the Oasis' true power lies in its ability to allow each student to interact with their own instance of the object that they are learning about. When learning about the human heart, for example, each student could interact with their own instance in the way that they learn best. The possibilities become truly endless, from insects to dinosaurs of all sizes to sea creatures. If you can dream it, you can bring it into the classroom. The question then becomes, why stop there? When you can take the classroom literally anywhere. And for those who would say that the Oculus Rift or Quest or any VR headset or the Microsoft HoloLens already beat me to it, I say the cheapest Oculus out there is $300. The Microsoft HoloLens is $3,500 USD. So I'll see you in the Oasis then.